More than 1 million Bay State families could face losing food stamps within days. Welcome, everyone, to Western Mass News at 4. I'm Chris Pisano.
And I'm Amanda Martin-Ryan. The U.S. Department of Agriculture warning state agencies there won't be enough funding to pay full SNAP benefits next month, prompting Massachusetts leaders and food banks to demand action.
Western Mass News reporter Matt Price is live in the studio with more details. Matt, what can you tell us at this point?
Well, Chris and Amanda, the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts is among those food banks, while Senator Ed Markey is not holding back his frustration regarding this whole ordeal. The Food Bank of Western Massachusetts Executive Director Andrew Morehouse joined Markey and other state leaders in Boston on Friday to express how needed these SNAP benefits are. As Western Mass News reported earlier this week, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which overlooks programs like SNAP, warned state agencies that if there is a lapse in appropriations and the government shutdown rolls on, there would not be enough money to pay full SNAP benefits in November. Still, more than 1 million people in Massachusetts could face a direct impact, including children, seniors, and those with disabilities. Morehouse explaining the situations hundreds of thousands of people go through when it comes to food insecurity.
They're making excruciating choices between paying their rent, paying utilities, buying medicine, putting food on the table, and so much more. They think should happen.
Senator Markey also weighing in, saying he blames the Trump administration and the Republican Party for what is happening right now as time is running out for those who need these benefits.
There's no lack of food in the richest country in the world. This is a complete lack of conscience, shame for the Republicans and the MAGA supporters all across this country.
However, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt blaming the Democrats for how this is all unfolding, as earlier this week, Senate Democrats again blocked a spending bill to reopen the government for now the 12th time. Governor Maura Healey also sounding the alarm over the potential cuts to SNAP at a separate press conference this morning. We will hear from her at 5 o'clock, and I will have a full report on Western Mass News at 6. For now, reporting live in the studio, Matt Price, Western Mass News.